And welcome into the New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise Podcast. I am Evan Marinofsky, joined as always by Patrick Donnelly, who is back from Ireland. Patrick, what's up?
Not much. Good to be back stateside, out of the wind, out of the elements, and good to be back on the grind.
A lot of golf, I imagine. And our guest today certainly has a name that would fit right in if you went over to Ireland, and that is the new head coach of the boys team at Phillips Exeter, Sean O'Brien. Sean, how are you?
Great, guys. Happy to join and excited to do this. So it's looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're coming to us.
And I've never been to Ireland. It's on the bucket list to get over there here, hopefully in the near future for sure.
Yeah, I haven't been either. I was jealous of Pat. It looked like a blast. It looked incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure. What part did you go to, Pat?
We were in Dublin and Belfast. So we flew into Dublin, drove up to Belfast, played some golf, went to the first round of the Open on Thursday, and then spent the weekend back down in Dublin before heading back home to Boston.
Oh, that's great. Good for you.
I was looking for Pat on TV at the Open because it was on. There was no other sports on those days, so it was the only thing on TV. And I was looking for Pat, couldn't find him. I was disappointed. But you sent me pictures. It looked insane. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I'm still not done going through those. I kind of emptied the clip on the memory card at Portrush, and yeah, it was awesome.
That's incredible. Sean, so you have the new job, head coach at Phillips Exeter. Can you kind of take us through how this came together and what drew you to that job?
Yeah, for sure. I was out in Pittsburgh this past year after spending 3 years at the Hill School in Pennsylvania, and during my time in Pittsburgh, although it was short, it was eye-opening for my wife and I and our family that two paths going on at once. One is being from New England, being from Boston, we really recognized how different it was. Pittsburgh's really more of a Midwest feel than a Northeast feel. And so that was going on as my kids start to think about going to college. And my wife and I realized, hey, we really want to be back in the Boston area. That was first and foremost. And then at the same time, in parallel, people can pay attention. There's a lot of changes going on in Pittsburgh. And so I just decided for me at this point in my life, I wanted to take the more secure path and get back to this area. And so I really missed coaching in the prep school level and in a school environment. So, over the past 8 years of my career, I've been at Harvard and the Hill School, both strong academic environments. And I really miss that culture of working with high-end student athletes. And so I was talking to a close friend of mine, Paul Pearl, who is the current AD at Dexter, and him and I are close friends from our time at Harvard and over the years. And I said, hey, please keep your eyes open for any good opportunities. And so being close to the AD meetings and what's going on, he said, hey, the job at Exeter is going to be opening up here. And this was February. And so, it's a no-brainer. Exeter is the Harvard of prep schools, if you will. And being from where I am, my wife and I lived in Maine for 12 years, raised our kids were born there. So Exeter, obviously being the proximity to where we lived in Kennebunkport, it was a no-brainer to jump all over that. And so I was fortunate to get my name into consideration pretty quickly with the administration at Exeter and the athletic director there. And then from there, the process moved very smoothly, very quickly. And I was fortunate to be the last man standing through that, from what I understand, was a large application pool and a pretty in-depth process. And I was fortunate to get the job.
And you were in Kennebunkport for 12 years. I knew you were in Maine, but I didn't know, because Kennebunk, Pat, I don't know if you've been to Kennebunk. It's such a great vacation spot. I know this is like the vacation episode, but you think,
yeah, exactly. It's the way life should be, right?
Exactly.
We were. So I prior to many years ago, after I was a scout with the Florida Panthers, I had gotten involved with the Portland Pirates of the American Hockey League, and was fortunate to start a junior program that in partnership with them. And so, yeah, we moved up there and Kennebunk became home. And so we quickly realized once we moved from there, how much we missed the Seacoast area. And so the job at Exeter, bringing us back to the Seacoast region, honestly was a blessing and something that we've been really appreciative of. We've lived there now a month. We moved in June 30th, and I been really fortunate that it all worked out the way it did.
And with Exeter, I know you mentioned, and I want to talk about Harvard with you because you and I have talked for a story with your connection to Harvard and how it influences a lot of what you do. But
yeah.
For Exeter, I know you mentioned, obviously, it's in the Seacoast region. It's sort of the Harvard, as you said, of preps. What else, when you got that job, what else attracted you to it? What else did you see as, oh man, like we've, different things I've got to work on in this job, different challenges potentially as you took it?
Well, it's like anything, and it reinforces what my thoughts were, having been there a month now. From the outside, not knowing, facts, if we will, but knowing from a peripheral and having an opinion, Exeter historically was always one of the top teams in New England prep hockey. And so what I learned at Harvard was it was really special to be able to have a student athlete that cared as much about the academic path that they were on with their athletic path. And so having missed that, Exeter to me always struck me as that, having that balance and that combination of the two. And so when you think about the history of the school, the alumni network that's come out of the school, the resources and the financial health of the school, the endowment at Exeter is $1.6 billion. The expectations daily of that academic and athletic balance, like it checks every box in terms of what a family might be looking for. And so that's what you think about going into it, looking at it and saying, okay, I said, we've got a beautiful campus, beautiful location, the proper resources in place, terrific leadership, history. There's no reason Exeter should not be year in, year out, one of the top teams in New England prep school hockey. And then now that I've been there and I've kind of had a really in-depth look at behind the scenes and lived there for a month, it solidifies every goal and every thought that I've had leading up to that. I've gotten to know the people and the culture. And even though it's a summertime, there's a large summer school program on campus with 650 students there. So I've seen the day-to-day as well. And I'm just really, really excited to be able to get going here in another month or so when regular school session kicks in the first week of September.
You mentioned the high academic standard at Exeter, and I'm wondering if, obviously, you've recruited before for prep, you've recruited before for colleges. Can it be difficult? Is it difficult finding kids who, at young ages, are as passionate about academics as they are about hockey, and can, is that a hard thing, or is there something you look for? Is there certain places you go to? I'm curious how you sort of approach the recruitment element with that.
No, I think, is it difficult? I mean, it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but I think it organically plays itself out. So, the old saying of, you end up where you're supposed to be. I think if you, for every 10 families you might talk with, I think there's always going to be a healthy balance of, 3.33 families are going to only focus on their sport. 3.3 families are going to focus on both. And 3.3 families are going to say, hey, you know what? Academics is my driver. I'm going to stay at my, local school and just play high school hockey. And I'm not going to let the sport drive my process. So I say that because I think there's enough good players for all paths, right? And I think I've seen it here my time at Harvard, where you've had NHL caliber players come through and make a decision at a young age that, hey, I can be both. I can be a high-end student and a high-end player and not let one impact the other negatively, so to speak. So, yeah, I think it makes you more disciplined, Evan, frankly. I think I don't waste any time, or I get right to, hey, let me see your transcript. I have a Zoom call right away. Once, if I see a transcript that's a healthy transcript and one that I think is the right profile for Exeter. I probably have had, I've been on since July 1st. I probably have had 15 Zoom meetings with families to immediately, say, hey, is academics important? If it is, great. If it's not, then let's, great to meet you, and let's move on in a different direction. So I've learned through my experience that I get right to the chase, evaluate the transcript, evaluate the goals of the player and the family, and if they don't align, we just don't continue down that road. But if they do align, and if there's a little bit of interest, 9 times out of 10, honestly, it ends up in a good spot, is from what I've seen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's good. Like, when I always love the phrase, be everything for someone, not something for everyone. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you tailor that message with, we want good student athletes. We want kids who care about being a student just as much as they care about being an athlete. And I think that schools that, like, as you said, Harvard, I think it surprises people that Harvard's able to be as good as they are. But if you look for that certain type of player, there are a lot of those out there. And I remember even when people used to have the discussion of, can prep survive the rise of the academy? And one thing I always used to hear coaches say was like, well, if you're looking at an academy, I don't know if a prep school is what you're looking for. So I think it's just 2 different routes, and you guys are a very certain route. And I think you're everything for someone, right?
Correct. I think you're spot on. And it's funny, I have this conversation a lot because most people don't know, right? They don't know. And so I find a lot of families that will use the phrase prep school. And in their mind, the definition of prep school includes an academy program in the same sentence with a school like Exeter or your regular New England type prep school. And I have to educate them on what you're looking at from an academy perspective. With all due respect, that's not what prep school is when I talk about this, right? They think just because there's a boarding aspect of a school, that makes it a prep school, right? And so they're different. They're totally different. And that's the same thing with players that are looking at an Ivy League school or a high-end academic prep school. I agree. And I've seen it. I've lived it. And there's certain players, just like some people like to shop at Target, some people like to shop at Walmart. People make choices, and that's the path they go on. And I truly believe there's enough players for both paths.
Yeah, that's something we've harped on, and like other coaches have harped on, where it's like it ultimately just boils down to the player and the family and what they're looking for, and it kind of sorts itself out. Because if you want all hockey, there are the options to do that, and then there are the options to go the other way. Exactly,
Patrick. Exactly. And so I think everyone will find a way to coexist and end up where they're supposed to be.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Any path. I think it all. If you use the path correctly, it can filter into success. Sean, you're coming to us from Harvard. You're the Crimson Combine. So it's definitely good that we ask about Harvard. I mean, you were there for a while. I know from talking to you, it influenced a lot of how to run a program outside of just even the academic part. What were some of the biggest takeaways from Harvard that you want to bring to Exeter?
I think the day-to-day culture of the program behind the scenes. I've known Teddy Donato, the head coach here, a long time. I've known Paul Pearl a long time. Paul was obviously the head coach at Holy Cross for 19 years prior to coming to Harvard. And so you've got 2 guys with vast paths of their own and vast experiences. Teddy coming from his NHL and Olympic experience and college, playing experience, obviously. And then Paul with, his success as a head coach. They combined. When I was here, I was fortunate to come in after their success had already started. And Rob Rassi was here as well as part of that staff. I was fortunate to step in and join that team. but to learn from them and just observe and be a part of what they've already established was how to treat the guys day to day as just great people. I think establishing relationships with my players was something that I learned from them. The value of a great relationship with our alumni, establishing that real connection of alumni support after a player moves on. And the saying I learned here was, once a Harvard hockey player, always a Harvard hockey player. And so you've got guys like Lane McDonald, Chuck Hughes, John Biotti, just awesome guys that I saw still paid back, and paid back to the players, paid back to the program, still involved day to day. So just learning the value of alumni involvement and support was critical. And then the families, like at the college level, I think there's a myth about family connection dies at the college level, so to speak, right? Well, Teddy being a family guy, Paul being a family guy, Ras being a family guy, and then the alumni, I just like the players' families were around and involved, and it was terrific to see. And so, Teddy would talk to parents, Paul would talk to parents. They're around post game. So I think the combination that I learned of building a culture around a program from them, whether it's with our players, with the alumni, and then with the players' parents and family members collectively, that's something I took away, and I took it with me to the Hill School. I certainly plan on, I've already established that communication and expectation with our players and our parents that it's going to be a great family culture, atmosphere, one that I want people to enjoy being a part of every day. And so those are my three main takeaways with my time at Harvard. The other stuff is transactional, right? It's, Jim Tortorella was phenomenal. I learned a ton from him in terms of day-to-day management, hockey operations of a program, video breakdown, videotaping of practices, the value of practice video for the players, for the coaching staff, in-game type of stuff. Like a lot of it was just, transactional type of things, but really made an impact on the program. John O'Donnell, our equipment manager. I mean, as a head coach of a prep team, you tend to take on different hats, right? And so the importance of the players' equipment, apparel, how they look, how they feel, like that was just awesome stuff to learn. Odie here at Harvard he's the best, and he cares about the players as if he's a parent of them. And so I took away that, right? And so I as my time here, I look at what I learned, what I felt in terms of an experience, and I just hope that I can provide the same type of experience and pay that forward moving with my guys at Exeter.
The technology element was something I remember you stressing to me when we first talked about the job, and when you were with the Panthers, I remember you saying in the early 2000s as a scout, technology was kind of becoming a big thing. And then when you were at Harvard, videotaping practice, giving guys just not game breakdowns, but practice breakdowns. Mm-hmm. Is that something you want to bring to Exeter as well? And how do you plan to sort of implement that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned Jim Tortorella before. Torts was huge into the technology side of both practice and game. And so I learned that from him. I learned to appreciate that from him. And so I plan on, I did it at Hill. I plan on doing it at Exeter, where I just think, I don't know how you coach years ago. I don't know how now, knowing what I know now, it must've been really difficult to coach without the heavy use of video, because most often you're wrong as a coach, right? If you react in real time, you can be wrong a lot of times because you're not seeing how a play might have developed or what might have happened in practice. And so having the ability to now go back and watch and process and evaluate what did happen and where the breakdown may have gone wrong or happened, or why a decision was made, it's critical. And so I think players from a development aspect, I plan on videotaping every one of our practices, breaking those down into a drill library, utilizing that drill library for pre-practice explanation of our practices, and then being able to utilize the same type of video expectation in game or post game for our players. And I just think that the more our guys can have access to their own video, watching themselves play, it's only going to help in self-evaluation and their overall player development as they prepare to get to the next level.
That's going to help make it more digestible, because in a game, you can say something on the bench and it's heat of the moment, it's moving fast out there, you might not know what was going on around you, but then I remember you see yourself from the 30,000 feet view on video, and you're like, oh, I did have all that space, or oh, this is why that happened. It's just got to make it so much easier to convey the message.
100%. It's taught me to be more patient as a coach, and my reaction is, let me see the video, let me watch the video, right? So a lot of times players will in game, or they're emotional, like, hey coach, what went wrong there, what happened? I'm like, I don't know, turn the page, don't worry about it right now, let's watch the video and go from there, and so I think it's taught me to be more patient, and I believe the hope is that it's allowed, or going to allow players to become more patient and more intentional in their self-evaluation. So I agree with you, Patrick. For me, it takes the emotion out of it. It really allows you to become much more of a teacher mentality, and want to be able to see the why of something, and then be able to come up with a solution to fix the why.
Do you want to skate fast? For 50 years, Laura Stam instructors have taught youth players to pros how to skate correctly, powerfully, and fast. Players who attend Laura Stam power skating programs learn how to skate fast by learning how to execute every maneuver in hockey. They become powerful, stable, efficient, and explosively fast skaters. If you can't wait for a clinic, join our subscription skills video service, and we'll show you the skills taught at our clinics in an easy-to-use video format with training plans to guide your training. Register or subscribe now at laurastam.com. That's LauraStamm.com. You can learn to skate fast.
For over 20 years, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey has been helping hockey players of all ages develop their individual skills and improve on all aspects of their game. Through structured drills and innovative training equipment, Eric Nate's Euro Hockey's intense on-ice instruction challenges each student to be the best at their ability. Find a hockey clinic or summer camp that is right for you today at nateshockey.com. That's NATES hockey.com. Eric Nate's Euro Hockey, train to be the best.
Do you want to become a better hockey player this summer with Paul Vincent Hockey? Since 1972, Paul Vincent, currently the head skills instructor of the Florida Panthers, has been developing NHL and college hockey players. Paul Vincent stands by his saying, there's always room for player development. Players such as Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, Keith Yandel, Matt Grzelcyk, Patrick Sharp, Adam Oates, and many more have trained with Coach Vincent and his staff and have outstanding results. Join Paul Vincent this summer at one of his 4 Massachusetts locations, Canton, Saugus, Middleton, and Falmouth on Cape Cod. To reserve your spot today, go to pvhockey.com or call 978-807-4070. That's pvhockey.com or call 978-807-4070. Paul Vincent is ready to get back to work this summer. Are you?
It's funny. I was listening to Marco Sturm on Chicklets yesterday or Tuesday, July 29th. And it's interesting because he was talking about how players nowadays want to know the why. Why are you saying this? What, the why behind things. And video, I think, really helps explain that. And players are better through the generations, and, the kids have more skating coaches than ever before, and different camps and skill development, all those things. But I'm wondering if you think players are better now because of video as well. I mean, there's apps like Huddle and other apps where you can just, you can watch it on your own time. You can have meetings. It's usually pretty good video. Do you think video is a reason why kids are better today than maybe ever before?
I personally think video is number one. I think so much time and money and effort has gone into skill development. But your skills to me are like, that's just more of a maintenance thing. Like you always can continue to work on. I go through it as a dad. I mean, I relate skill development to a golfer going to the driving range, right? To me, it's a golfer goes to the driving range, a true golfer, a guy, someone that is looking to play at the next level. They hardly play golf. They go to the range and they might work on their putting for 45 minutes. They might work on their short irons for 45 minutes. They work on their woods for a certain amount of time, and then they might get to the afternoon and play 3 holes. You know what I mean? They don't really play golf until the weekend. For the most part, they're working on their individual skills. And so I say to players all the time, do that at the rink. Like, you don't need to spend a ton of money and time on just skill development. I think the video aspect is watch yourself play. Watch yourself in practice. Watch yourself in games. Evaluate your shifts, and then take that to the driving range and come up with a skill development plan that's applicable or relates to the video that you watched. So I see skills, and I see it as a parent. So much skill development is not related to their actual game film or how they played. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, defenseman, right? Watch how you retrieve a puck. Watch how you walk the blue line. Watch how you walk the blue line and maybe change the shot angle and get that puck on net. So now go to the rink and just work on retrievals for 30 minutes. Simple retrievals, picking the puck off the wall off your backhand, or someone just pass you the puck. You simply walk the blue line and make sure the puck gets on net, right? And I relate a defenseman shooting the puck on net to a golfer being 150 yards out and just hitting a wedge, hitting 100 wedges to make sure they get within 10 feet of the pin, right? Like, so I just think if players can really maximize their video evaluation and their self-evaluation and then apply that to the ice, I think then you get a real connection.
Is there a balancing act you have to strike just between, not inundating them with video or, information and just kind of, I don't know, breeding overthinking or whatever?
Yeah, I do. I think, and that's where I think the clips, it's, I never really will put a playlist together of more than 10 to 12 clips. You know what I mean? It's really like, so 10 to 12 clips might take your, 5 minutes, 7 minutes to go through with a player. So it's quick hits, but it's a memory snapshot that you can then take and apply. Right. And I think, Evan, to your point, that's been the greatest thing for me. And this might be a PR campaign for Huddle, but I love the fact that Huddle bought Instat. So now we're going to have in our rink, we're going to have the Huddle focus camera. So now you're a player. We're going to have the Huddle focus camera permanently mounted in our 2 rinks. Right. So as a coach, I can take my phone. I'm going to put our whole practice schedule in and schedule practice video to be taped right through my phone, right? And then the camera turns on, videotapes our practice. That video automatically loads into my Huddle platform. And then I just simply clip it from there. There's no manual labor. There's no time. It's done seamlessly and in real time. And then same thing with Instat. So you've got practice clips and game clips already done. And so a player can then go in and watch on Instat, their shifts, right? So to your point, Patrick, if done properly, and that's part of my job is to teach players how to use video most effectively. It's 8 to 10, 12 clips, and it's 5 to 10 minutes at the most,
And everybody wants to look at the good stuff. Everybody's like, I want to see that dangle I had out there. But
yeah.
That's not what video is for. You gotta, as you said, you watch your rough puck retrieval, or you got a shot blocked at the blue line. You do have to watch that.
Well, I tell guys all the time, it's opportunity. It's a time where you got to have big shoulders. You got to self-reflect, and you got to look yourself in the mirror and not have your feelings get hurt. Right. It's an opportunity to get better. I relate it back to golf, right? Scotty Scheffler comes off, finishes 18, he goes right to the driving range and he works on everything that went bad in that round. He doesn't work on what went well in that round. He works on what he didn't feel comfortable with in that round. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Pat, is that what you do?
Oh yeah, of course. It's just interesting to hear you say like looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself. It's like, well, yeah, because the video doesn't lie. That's what happened. You might think it went differently in your head just because it's moving so fast out there, but when you see it on the video, you see what actually happened.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's great. I don't know if you guys remember last season or the season before, it might have, but John Tortorella, he removed the iPads from the bench in game because people want to see it right away. But I think the best part about video, to your point, Patrick, is after the fact, non-emotional, and it doesn't lie. So, hey, Patrick, what happened there? What went wrong? In game, it's emotional, right? You might react differently where, post game the next day, it's like, okay, that makes sense. I get it now, right? I'm seeing it from a different lens and unemotional, and it allows you to look yourself in the mirror with a clearer view.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And so I'm curious, like outside of technology and sort of your view on prep as a whole, obviously the CHL ruling and the impacts on prep, I think everyone has a little bit different of an opinion on what they think the CHL ruling could do to prep, or if it even will impact prep at all. Do you think there will be any effect? I remember when you and I talked, if I remember correctly, you didn't think there was going to be a huge impact, but I'm curious if that's changed or if you still feel that way.
I really don't think it's going to have a huge impact. I still think no different than, players looking at an academy versus a prep school model. I think you're going to have the high end small percentage of players that are still going to look at the CHL, are going to look at the CHL. But then I still think you're going to have most kids want to get their education and prep school experience. And I think as a parent and as a family, especially for prep players, for most of them being from New England, they're going to have to play in the Quebec League, right? So as you evaluate the options, do I want to potentially at a young age go to a French-speaking town, live with another family, completely change my day-to-day, which can have a negative impact on a young kid, right? I think going to a good prep school, get your academics in place, start to build your professional network, your lifelong network, and then go play junior hockey when you are a little bit more mature at the right level. I think you're going to tend to see more of that, but I think there's going to be a small percentage of kids that will impact right away because it's the new sexy thing. I think when time levels out, I think it will normalize, and I think you'll still see strong players wanting to get that traditional prep school experience. And it's up to us as coaches, and I've had this conversation, we have to provide. So for me at Exeter, I'm operating our program moving forward as close to a Division I college program as we can. On the ice, off the ice, behind the scenes, so that a high-end player feels confident that they're going to be able to get everything that they can get from a development aspect at Exeter and don't have to go elsewhere if they're evaluating the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And there's a lot of questions I think, certain kids have of, am I ready for the CHL? Whether, for kids in New England, it's the Q. Your son, Jack, was in the OHL last year. Like, you watched a lot of OHL games last year with your son. What's the level like? And if a player came to you and said, am I ready for that jump pre-graduation? What would you be looking for? What would they need to be doing to be able to make that jump?
And I think that's key. I love the question because so as a scout 25 years ago, I watched it, right? But I watched it from a different lens because you're looking for a small percentage of, NHL players. Having watched, and then I haven't watched it at all for many, many years. Having watched it this past year closely as a parent, very few young kids could step in and play and have an impact. Like very few. I mean, I look at so 08s last year. So in 08 would have been a junior and or senior in prep school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
07s, depending on your birth year, depending on your weight, but most teams only had a couple of 08s, that could really even have an impact. So now you go from, playing 25 minutes a game to playing 7 minutes a game and being on the younger end. I just think the average high school prep school player at 17 years old is going to have a better impact. If the entry point is 20, 21 years old, there's no point in rushing it for the majority of the players to get there at 16. Get there at 18, play your 2 years and go in as a 20-year-old, but get your prep school experience and get the academics in place, get the maturity level where it needs to be, and then start to build your professional and academic path. I just think that's the majority of the players. For the minority, the 1%ers, I still think they're going to go just like they went to the USHL. I still think we're going to lose them to the CHL, but I do believe it's not the right choice to go young if you're not part of that 1%. I think you got to, because it's a huge jump. It's really a huge jump that these kids really don't. It's pro hockey. I mean, it's 4,000 to 5,000 people a game. It's a pro mentality. It's a pro schedule in terms of travel, right? I think that's the biggest challenge is you're playing Tuesday games. It's an NHL pro schedule, right? There's a lot of travel and busing. So as a young kid, it's a huge shift. It's a huge shift and it's a huge jump. And I just think that the majority of kids will eventually, I think you're going to see it level out. That's my opinion. I might be wrong. Time will tell. But having lived it, I think it's going to be really, unless I think this is the key. I read something yesterday that the CHL is going to become the best midget league in North America. If the entire league shifts to 16, 17, 18, you might have a different story. But right now, there are a lot of 19-year-olds. There are a lot of 20-year-olds. And so that younger player is going to have a challenge. But if the entire league goes to that midget age, we might be talking about a different story. But I don't see that happening because these teams, they need to still survive off of ticket sales, sponsorships, television. So they need to be older and competitive as well, in addition to the player development aspect.
Yeah, and having potential NHL draft picks, or even, guys who were picked last year or the year before that. I agree with you. It would be interesting if it got younger because, Sean, I mean, you hear this, Pat, you certainly hear this. I definitely hear this. Everybody has a different theory on what's going to happen. Is the USHL going to get younger? Is the USHL going to get worse? Is it going to get better? And I think it's tough to tell. And I think around here, it's all right, well, how does it affect prep? And I don't think we know that quite yet. But Sean, you mentioned an interesting thing with going from playing 25 minutes a night as a 17-year-old to 7 as an 18-year-old. And there are some that works for. There are some who are I just want to practice with older kids and I want to kind of get broken in and I want to earn my spot and I want to do that. But then there's also people that ruins their confidence. And it's you could have went back to prep and you could have played a ton and you could have gone in that much more experienced and that much stronger into junior the next year. And that's the tough part where I don't think there's any right way to know how a kid's going to react to juniors. Because I said it works great. Some jump early and they don't play a lot, but it's phenomenal and they end up getting great experience and they're in the next year and they're great. But others it doesn't work for. Do you notice that? Can you notice anything in a player to be able to tell you whether or not that they're going to be ready?
I think their maturity level, you can tell mentally. There's so much that comes into play other than the hockey. I think the living with another family that you don't know, being in someone's basement, having a lot of downtime. There's so many things that are non-hockey related that really impact a player's mental state outside of the rink that factor into it. And I don't think that gets taken into consideration enough. I think the hockey aspect is the main focus, where I think that's my point about the maturity level. if you stay in prep and you stay in more of a college environment with a boarding school, classes, accountability, and being the guy, I think it's important. Like, it's important for a young player to be the guy in key situations and build that confidence. I think that whole, that whole view of the student athlete is critical. I think that gets lost. And so the mental makeup, the mental maturity plays such a huge role, I think, in the success of a young kid going to junior hockey. And for some, it works out great. I think there's a lot of negative stories that we don't hear about a lot more. We only hear about the positive ones, but there's a lot more downside than upside, in my opinion.
Pat, do you have anything else?
I just kind of thought it was interesting. You bring it up, establishing your professional connections and your kind of resources for after hockey. And like, that's kind of something like, coaches have talked about that with us on the podcast. Like, we hear that a lot on like the girls' side, how, hockey will end. And that's kind of the part that seems to get lost in the shuffle with all this. And I just thought it was interesting that you mentioned that a couple of times, just, having those resources and those contacts and that network for you. Cause for most guys, it is going to end at some point soon.
Patrick, I think it's something that for a percentage of players and families, they certainly understand it. I just think it's something that is a huge piece of, I think about my life, and I still talk to and see guys. I'm 51. I mean, I'm talking 30 years, 35, 40 years that I played with, right? Like, I still see on a daily basis or talk to that. I just think it's a huge piece. And I think that if players can, I feel like we've lost that a little bit with the heavy focus on the hockey side. I really hope I'm intentional about it with all of my recruits, that if you're going to come to Exeter, it's starting to build that network long term, because you're going to be classmates and dorm mates and teammates with guys that aren't even thinking about hockey at the next level and don't play hockey at all, but yet you guys are going to become buddies in the dining hall or in class or in the dorm, and that checks a box in terms of, okay, I've begun to set myself up for the future and establish these relationships that are going to have a positive impact on my life. And one thing I say this to every one of my players and my recruits, we've all had ups and downs in life, and you make mistakes and you evaluate. And the one thing I have not been able to figure out is how to turn back the clock, right? You can evaluate, you can change, you can reflect, and you can make changes in anything that you do, but I can't turn back time. And I feel like these young players, once you pass on these opportunities, you can't go back. And so establishing your professional network early and young, and putting yourself in a great position to succeed and create that balance between hockey and non-hockey. You got one chance to do it. Why not do it right?
And some people, like, at a young age, you have no idea, just creating relationships, just being friends with kids outside of hockey and what that can turn into. Like, you're not doing it exactly for business connections, but as you said, it can have huge implications down the road.
You're exactly right. That's what it's establishing relationships. And so, if you go into something like tunnel vision and you're only focused on hockey, so maybe it works out for you for the 1%ers, right? But for most people, it's those relationships and having a macro view on your process and your path. You can then really take advantage of those relationships down the road, because you've built good friendships and trust, and that lasts a lifetime,
Now, I imagine the Phillips Exeter alumni network is pretty good. So take advantage of.
I just sent a text to someone the other day. I didn't know this until the other day. Literally, it's just like crazy when you think about it. But Abraham Lincoln's son went to Exeter back in 1860, and I sent a text to someone saying, "Did you know this?" And we were laughing about it. But not that it's going to impact anyone moving forward. But it's that type of thing, right? Like, it's pretty cool when you think about who you could be sitting next to in class, and they become your friend, and have a good relationship 20 years later.
I'm sure when you're recruiting kids, like you can sit next to Abraham Lincoln's son in class. You could be doing it.
So. Oh yeah,
I've already
used it. I've already used it a couple times. It was pretty cool.
It's got to be like the Ted Williams seat. Like, look, he sat at this desk.
Yeah. No, for sure. I used it the other night on a Zoom call. The parents were laughing. It was funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think we've hit on everything, but before we go, we got to go to our great producer, David Yaz, for overtime.
Overtime.
Yes, welcome back to Overtime. 3 questions for our panelists. They are unprepared for these questions, and we're going to talk about hockey strategy today. 3 questions about hockey strategy. First question, when to pull the goalie. What do most coaches get wrong or get right about when to pull the goalie? Coach, we'll let you start on that one.
Oh, it's a great question. I don't know. I see it more and more becoming earlier, and I know what the analytics say, but I got to tell you, I think I'm still kind of an old school mentality on that one, where I like that minute and a half range. I've seen some, certainly at the NHL level, where they're pulling it at 2.5, 3 minutes, and I don't know. I'm still kind of old school on that. I like to get that puck over the red line, get it deep, and then with about a minute and a half, pull the goalie. But I might be wrong on that. But it's I've pulled it too early before, and I kick myself for it.
Excellent answer, Pat. Let's go to you.
I would say probably pretty similar. Like 2 minutes would be my max. What drives me nuts sometimes watching games is when they wait too long, and you get to like a minute, 50 seconds, 45, and like you've got it in the offensive zone, and you just kind of hand in the pockets waiting for like 30 seconds. And it's like, all right, well, you just wasted potentially 4 or 5 chances you could get in the 30-second span with that extra skater out. So I think 2 minutes is good, but like, I guess if you're like down 3 or 4 and really trying to make it happen and have a Hail Mary, like I could see 4 or 5 minutes, but I don't know about that at that point.
Interesting. I wonder what the statistics bear out for that, but our research department is busy right now. Evan, your thoughts, pulling the goalie.
I like when John Missouri pulls his goalie with like 8 minutes left. I always enjoy that when Arlington's down a couple goals and he decides to do that. Boring answer. I'm with them. Like a minute 30, get over the red line, controlled zone entry or dump it deep. Like I'm the same way. And Pat, I agree with you. Like when they start to, when the time is ticking down and they're not doing it, it's like, what are you doing? So yeah, like 1 minute 30 range is my sweet spot.
All right. Very good. We've only got a couple minutes left here, boys. So I'll ask you to keep your answers brief on these if possible. But Evan, we'll start with you. Generally speaking, how has analytics changed the way teams approach hockey strategy?
I think it gets you past just goals, assists, plus minus. Like I think analytics certainly helps you analyze, a player's effectiveness in a shift. I don't know if it's super into prep. Like Sean, I know you have Instat. I forget how deep that goes though, but I know at the NHL level, you can kind of find value in guys that maybe you didn't see before for different stats. So I think that's where analytics helps you out a bit.
All right, Pat.
Yeah, sort of what Evan said. It kind of helps paint a fuller picture of a player, especially, free agency. It's helpful. Like obviously these days, everyone has all sorts of stats. It's like you can find diamonds in the rough and all that. And then even in the game, gone are the days where everybody's dumping it in. Like everybody's going towards possession and gaining the zone with possession. And the numbers are kind of backing it up.
Very good. Coach?
Yeah, I'm still kind of old school in this, but there's certain areas that, at least for at the prep level, that I focus on shot attempts versus shots on goal. I think the shot attempts is a nice one from a coaching perspective. Puck possession is always a good one that I like, and expected goals for is one that I like to use a lot. But after that, for me at our level, it's still about the eye test and a gut feeling as a coach and philosophy, not relying so much on the analytical side of that.
All right. I think we've established your old school coach. This is not a bad thing. I just want to say
I'm a balance. I am balanced, but you got to believe in your ways too.
For sure. Well, that'll lead us into the final question, and it's kind of a broad question, but do your best. Coach, we'll start with you, and that is that what are some or just name one outdated strategy, something that used to fly in hockey maybe back in the day, that now we're a little smarter and we avoid that strategy. Coach, anything come to mind on that?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good one. I still think like when we talk about puck possession, I still love the old, nothing wrong with, hey, if the defensive zone is chaotic and we're in trouble, I'm okay with getting rid of the puck, ice the puck, get the puck to neutral zone with a high chip, and then we regroup, and I'm okay with that. I think having to skate the puck or possess the puck and not necessarily give the puck up, I'm okay with the icing or the chip to neutral zone and get it out of our own zone.
Pat, your thoughts on outdated strategies?
I would say the same thing, honestly, because Evan and I have said that kind of a lot on the podcast, where you see so many times you get like painted into the corner, you're trying to skate it out, and turnover, it's in the back of your net. Like, nothing wrong if you don't have a lane or anything, just off the glass and out, live to fight another day. And obviously, some of the rules in club hockey weren't conducive to that, especially on penalty kills. But there's nothing wrong with off the glass and out.
All right. And Evan, if you could bring it home, outdated strategies.
Well, I'll go a different direction. One thing that you don't see a lot of anymore, guy goes over the blue line, just immediately takes a shot. I think old school, you just like get shots on net, shoot from anywhere. Now you see much more of an emphasis, sometimes to a fault, on high danger chances and getting pucks into the slot and getting the best shot possible. And that can result in bad things and it can result in good things. So I think that's more of an offensive strategy. You don't see as many guys come over the blue line and take like a clap bomb. It's more like, try to beat the defender wide, stop up and wait for help, look for passing lanes. That's another thing. I think it's a little bit different now.
We need more Craig Smiths and Victor Arvidssons.
Just shoot the daylights out of the puck. You're right.
Well, it ties back to what I use the word momentum, right? Like, so sometimes you can kill momentum by getting the puck out of the zone, or you maintain momentum by just getting pucks on net, right?
Yeah.
Excellent answers all around. I learned a few things, believe it or not, guys. Well done on overtime. And Evan, back to you to wrap things up.
That's RinkWise. Sean, thank you so much for joining. We really, really appreciate it. Best of luck in your first year at Exeter. We'll be watching closely. And that's RinkWise. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You RinkWise listeners, we will see you at the rink.